Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Their Story Matters, right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest is David Richman. He's followed a calling of his own. He believes that inspiring deeper human connection through life-changing stories. He has this wonderful book that has come out called The Cycle of Lives, and it tells of 15 stories of trials and triumph with victory and defeat. Many books only share one perspective. However, David's book provides cancer stories told from 15 different perspectives, allowing readers to examine a wide range of experience, events, emotions, backgrounds, and viewpoints. This array of human experience will help readers to grow in empathy and better understanding of how issues like suicide, abandonment, loss, survivor guilt, abuse, fertility, and more affect the way people deal with the traumas that shape their lives, cancer or otherwise. Life wisdom within each page. Readers of The Cycle of Lives will be better equipped to deal with trauma, be there for people around them, and feel more supported in starting hard conversations. And mental and emotional journey from our home cycle of lives also appeals to readers who enjoy moving narratives of ordinary people persevering through extreme enduring events like the 5,000-mile bike rides that inspire them to tackle their own lofty dreams. He has, over the last 15 years, done over 50 triathlons, including 15 Ironman distant triathlons, more than 50 runs longer than a marathon distance, several 24-hour runs, an 85-mile run in Mexico during the summer. Crazy. 4 consecutive marathons, 104 miles from Santa Barbara to Manhattan Beach, and a solo 5,000 bike ride from California to New York. I'm just exhausted just saying that. Never mind you doing it. Welcome to the show, love.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I'm exhausted thinking about it. It's a lot of miles, isn't it?
It is a lot of miles and a lot of dedication. And clearly, it must be very therapeutic for you because you wouldn't do it otherwise, right? But
Mm.
is this how it all came about? Through the writing, through the meeting the people? How did this all start, this wonderful cycle of lives?
Well, the cycle of lives did start through meeting people and deciding that I had a mission to try to accomplish when it came to helping people talk about the emotional side of cancer.
Hmm.
The overall being athletic and taking on endurance athletics was kind of a combination of a number of things, Sarah. Um, I was going through a tremendous amount of turmoil in my own life, my personal life, in my business life. I was a smoker. I was overweight. I hadn't done anything athletic. I was in a very bad personal relationship. I had young twins that I needed to get them to a safe place. And then, at work was stressful, maybe self induced, maybe just because I worked in a very big, brutal environment in the corporate world on Wall Street. And while I'm trying to contemplate where my life is all going, my sister calls me and says, "Hey, brother, I hate to tell you this, but I'm going to die of brain cancer soon."
Oh,
And I just went, "Oh my goodness!" So
hmm.
that, everybody, most people have a point in their life that kind of leads to transformation. For me, it was this pinnacle of stress, self-induced and otherwise,
Hmm.
where I just stood in front of a mirror, Sarah, not figuratively, literally stood in
Hmm.
front of a mirror and just said, like, seriously, David, who do you want to be? And why don't you take charge of this thing rather than just succumbing to whatever, what you think everybody else wants you to do? Why don't you just do it on purpose? So that was the start of it.
Everybody needs a kind of a bottom out, or I
Hmm.
call it the cosmic 2x4. That, have I got your attention now? You know where you shouldn't be. Now
Hmm.
let's take you to where you can be.
Hmm.
And that wonderful willingness of exploration. Like, I know I don't want to be here anymore. The
Hmm.
walls are collapsing in, everything seems to be in chaos. But how do I pull that thread and,
Yeah.
unravel it? And where am I meant to be? And you have to step into allowing, don't you?
Hmm.
You have to step into trust that the universe will just show you the way. You also have to be in tuned with self, and that means going, into the center of that tornado, and not letting it keep swirling you around, because that's where you were, swirling around.
Oh,
You
no
have to go
doubt.
to that center of calm and go, okay, I'm not meant to be here. What am I meant to do? And when you ask that question, it's amazing what reveals itself, isn't it?
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, to give you an analogy of exactly what you just said, the very first endurance event that I did is going to sound crazy to people, was an 87-mile rollerblade race. You remember rollerblades? You know those
I do.
rollerblades?
I do.
So forget about the background behind it, but I'm doing this 87-mile rollerblade race. I have no
Now, wait a minute,
business.
pause a moment. You said you were
Yeah.
overweight and a smoker.
And at that time, I had lost my weight, but I was still smoking.
Oh, crazy.
So imagine being a smoker and hiding behind the start line, having a cigarette because I'm not going to have one for 9 hours. And meanwhile, I'm doing this, and it's not a dancing around on the
Mhm.
beach kind of rollerblade. It's a on roads up and down the mountains in Georgia kind of
Mm,
race. It's a
mm,
race. And about halfway into it, I am literally pushed myself as far as one could push themselves. And I I was ready to quit, and I'm leaned over on sideways to a hill, because if I was even with the hill, I would have slid right down. I'm leaning sideways to the hill, and I'm bent over on my hands and knees. I'm breathing as hard as I could. I'm dizzy. It's like 90 degrees out, and I'm watching this sweat drip down onto the black pavement, and the sweat is so salty that it's white, and it's leaving this line on the pavement. And I said to myself, "Oh, I just want to quit." And then just a thought came into my head. I said, "Well, that's a line that you've never ever seen in your life before. And every point that you go past that line, you're going to discover that you're
mm,
just saying that self-discovery. Every point you go past this line right here, you're going to go to a new place. It's You've never been there before." And I went, "Oh my gosh." So that kind of fired me up.
mm.
And every time I do some kind of ridiculous event, I go, "Oh, well, let's see what we can figure out. Let's see what we can find. Let's see what we can discover about ourselves."
Yeah, what's the other side of the mountain?
Yep.
You don't give up when you're a few inches from the top, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. We don't realize how resilient we really are until we have to push ourselves. And,
Hmm.
we go through our daily lives and we may come home and complain about, oh, I'm exhausted. What a day I had. And then you get those days, oh my God, the day I've had. And I have got to still have more in my engine just to get to the midnight. And we don't realize we're so resilient, we're so capable if we believe we can, if we believe we should,
Hmm.
that this is bigger than the pain I'm in right now.
Hmm.
And there is a reason why I need to push forward. And when we do that, we break through that. Kind of when you turn around and look back, you go, I never knew I was capable of that. If I'm capable of that, what else am I capable of?
Hmm. But it's until you make it uncomfortable for
Mm,
yourself, then it's easy to stay boxed in, and that's
yeah,
okay. It's a safe place, and you know what you know what your limits are, and that's fine.
yeah,
But for me, who was trying to come from a place of turmoil to one with less turmoil, that meant that I had to get out of that tornado.
yeah.
I had to figure out a way to evolve or transform or take myself on a purposeful journey out of that chaos. And
Yes.
sometimes we're forced to do that, like you said, with a cosmic two by four. I say, like a cancer hits people like a shovel in the face,
Mm,
right? So whatever it is that might cause you to be forced to, or allow you the opportunity to move away from this kind of boxed in, chaotic, tightly bound life that might not be exactly the most and best life that you can
hmm.
have, um, then that's where life gets really fun and interesting. So that's the journey I found myself on. um, in my late 30s. I didn't come to that realization until I was in my late 30s, and here I am.
I mean, actually, kind of quite young, really, because
Yeah.
there's so many people, of my generation. It was the 50s and the 60s where you think, well, I don't have to live by this dictation anymore, this
Uh-huh.
expectation. And you go, who imposed this expectation? Because it's unrealistic. It's certainly not connective. I'm so busy trying to live up to what everybody else wants, what society says you should be. And being on Wall Street, exactly what,
Hmm.
they dictate. And it's that you don't even find yourself, never mind lose yourself, because you've never been with self,
Hmm.
right? You've always been with the expectation. And to suddenly just go, okay, forget the expectation. I'm in that self discovery. I'm in that exploration of
Yeah.
who I am and what I'm here to do.
Hmm.
And if you could step into that, the excitement comes into it, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Of
Oh,
like,
no doubt.
well, the world is my canvas, you
Hmm.
know, uh, just give me the paintbrush and let me explore.
But you're exactly right, but it's a really hard concept to really like settle into, and it's an even tougher concept to apply. So
Mm,
the way that I looked at it, what finally happened to me when I was standing in front of that mirror, is I came to the realization, Sarah, that I was doing everything based on what I thought I was expected to
yeah.
do. So I'm gonna act a certain way because it'll stop my mom from being angry at me
Mm,
when I'm a kid, or my teacher to be proud of me, or it's the way I'm gonna do something because my boss will then give me a promotion, or my employees will like me better, or I'll be a better spouse, or
hmm.
whatever. And turning that into, I need to do the things that I'm gonna do because I have an expectation of myself,
Yeah.
and I could care less about what anybody else thinks or says, which is a really weird thing for when you grow up always wondering and
Hmm.
worrying about what other people think,
Yeah.
for you to then say, well, I literally am not going to care anymore what they're going to think. What's more important is what I think. Then that's that. Like I said, that's the realizing it,
Mm.
and then taking action to try to take advantage of that. So for me, it was starting to be athletic, and starting to push my boundaries, and starting to um, not worry about what how I was perceived or how I thought I should be perceived, and just be, just be.
Just be you. Just be you. The thing about all this expectation of you can please one person and the other person seeing exactly the same thing you've done is displeased with you. And
Hmm.
really, when it comes up to it, we have no control of anybody else's opinion of us. So therefore, they it shouldn't have any control over us. So, it's your consciousness, it's yourself. Am I doing enough? Have I stepped up? Am I being true to myself? Am I really in my meaningful purpose? And when you can answer that for yourself and you're on that path, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of you. But what you will find is people will celebrate you because you're living in your truth, you're living in that meaningful purpose, and they want to be around that light. But we really have no control over what anybody else thinks of us. And really, it's none of our business, really, in a way,
I'll,
isn't it? It's none
I'll
of our
take it.
business.
And I'll take it a step further, Sarah. Oftentimes, if you're somebody like me who thought, was so concerned with that, that's a little egotistical, because guess what? Most people didn't think of me, didn't have an opinion
Right,
of me, didn't
right.
judge me, didn't waste their time, because they're busy living their own lives, doing
Yes.
their own things. They don't have time to worry about me. And here I was worrying about what they were thinking about me. They
Hmm.
weren't thinking
You're
about me. So,
right.
I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, like, get over yourself and just do
Yes.
it for you. And so, um, I love this quote that I heard that said, when it came to Ironman, it was one of the founders of the Ironman triathlon, and he said, you know, that it was a kind of a two-part quote. He said, "Why do I do Ironman?" He said, "Well, I'm going to get off the couch and go do it because I might finish last, but I'm going to finish ahead of the guy that never started."
Right.
And
Mm,
which is part one of the quote, which is awesome. But part two of the quote is that he said, "If I don't finish, nobody's going to care.
mm,
Nobody's going to see, but I'm always going to know."
right.
And I went, oh. So you mean you should do something like an Ironman because you want to do it and not because you think other people will think it's cool,
Yeah.
or whatever it is, right? The work extra hours. Maybe you should do that because you want to, not because you think it'll get you somewhere. Maybe it will get you somewhere, maybe it won't, but do it because that's what you want to do, right? I used to say when I was taking care of my kids, and people go, "Oh my God, you cook them dinner every night." I'm like, "Yeah, I get to cook them. That's what I
Yes.
want to do. It's
Yes.
not a have to for me. That's
Right.
what I want to do." And it's like, oh, well, maybe I should look at everything in life like that. Like some
Mhm.
people might look at that as a chore. I looked at it as an opportunity.
Right. Yes. I mean, with raising children, they like a routine. And some
Hmm.
people go, oh, the routine is boring. And yeah, now and again, it's nice to break it. That's the treat. But if you don't look at it as a chore, and you look at it as this is the time I'm going to sit around the table with them
Hmm.
and have that conversation as precious moments, right? It's again goes back to perspective. You can look at it as the downer or you can look at it as the upper. It's really a question of what you feed and what you water,
Hmm.
as to what it's going to be. So we have to change our attitudes sometimes, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And you use that word perspective. I'll tell you another quick story. As I'm getting ready to do a 50-mile run in the end of June outside of Las Vegas. And if you know the temperature at the end of June in Las Vegas, that day it got to 118 degrees. So it's warm, like hot, hot, hot. People getting airlifted out on helicopters and the whole thing. So I show up late to the start line and I'm completely freaked out. I got to catch up to everybody that's taken off 3 or 4 minutes before me, and it's an early start because it's so hot and it's already like brutally hot, like 95 degrees at like
Mhm.
6 in the morning. And I'm cursing myself, and what the heck are you doing out here? And why are you doing this? And this is stupid. And you're an idiot. And then I went, wait a second, why don't you change your perspective?
Yeah.
And I thought about that word, Sarah, perspective. And I said, well, the perspective of like when a movie opens up, how does the director shoot it? And the perspective of, do I get to do something or have to do something? And the
Mm.
perspective of, should I be optimistic or should I be pessimistic? Which one motivates more? And blah, 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 blah. And before you knew it, I was at the turnaround 25 miles later.
Mhm.
I've done nothing but think about that word perspective for 4+ hours. And it really sunk into me, the meaning of it.
Mhm.
I think it's easy for us to grab onto to trite motivators or trite things, but
Mm.
when you said it's a matter of perspective, literally everything is a matter of
Yeah.
perspective. How you choose to believe is the way it is.
Well, the analogy of the glass is half full.
Hmm.
Well, it's half full of water or something, but it's half full of air.
Right.
It's always full.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's only your perspective that perceives it as half empty,
Yeah.
right? So our lives can always be full. It's
Hmm.
all a question of how we choose to look at them, right? Because
Absolutely.
we're our own worst enemies, aren't we?
Mm.
You know,
Without
um,
a doubt.
we to quote, dig our own graves, so to speak, because we're always trying to live up to those expectations, trying to live up to something, that we've got to be this, we've got to be that. Um, Even in our own self-discovery, it's like we're wanting an approval along that. Am I doing it right?
Hmm.
Should I be doing this? Am I having an effect? And if we could stop asking those questions of everyone else and only ask this question of ourselves,
Hmm.
can I do more? I mean, obviously, your cycle of lives and the telling of the stories, this obviously came from something more you were
Hmm.
doing. How did that pivot over to telling these stories?
So, um, and it's a great question, Sarah, and I appreciate you asking it. I think that I was always a great problem solver, but I wasn't smart enough to go from point A to point B to solve a problem. I would go backwards, dig myself a hole, self sabotage something, create chaos, and then solve it and just get to back to even. That
Sounds
was
like
my
me.
problem solving. Right?
The
And I
hard
wish
way.
I would have been one of these smart people that started here and solved problems to move myself forward,
Mhm.
right? But I wasn't smart enough to do that. But when it came to this book and this project, I literally just said I want to solve a problem, and I saw a problem that was a very prevalent issue in the world in which I found myself in. And the world I found myself in was my sister had recently died of cancer, brain cancer. And I was doing events, endurance athletic events in her memory and in her honor, and to raise money for the cancer center that took care of her. And during the time that she was sick and beyond then, when I was doing these events, I saw that people were really good about being able to talk about the tasks around their cancer. When am I going to get my next PET scan? How do I talk to my doctor? How do I navigate insurance? How do I get my kids taken care of when I'm getting chemo? Like they could talk about that all day long and try to figure it out and ask for help and get guidance and whatever. But when it came to the emotional side of it, that's when things shut down. And even when, like at events, when they do like a memory lap, or mile memory or something, everybody is quiet. You don't talk
Mm-hmm.
about you just you don't talk about the emotional side of it. And I thought to myself, that's just strange. And the doctors felt the same way, the caregivers, the survivors, the loved ones, people that had just had friends that were going through it. They would love to help them
Yeah.
with the tasks, but they didn't have a means to communicate about the emotional side of it. And so that's the problem that I wanted to try to help solve. And so, not to give you too long of an answer, but so I thought to myself, if I could put together a group of people that were interesting and evocative and had something in common with all of us, that is, they all had traumas, like you mentioned in the intro, drug addiction, uh, having a suicide of a parent, or um, making bad choices in life, or being abused, or whatever. We all have those kind of traumas in our lives that we can identify with. How did those traumas affect the emotional journey when it came to their cancer? And I said, if I can find people that had a wide range of trauma, a wide range of emotional responses to their issues, different types of cancer, different amounts of cancer that they had, different ages when they had it, um, uh, then and I could get into their stories and tell it just from the emotional side of it. Then I thought that, hey, maybe this could help solve the problem of what can you do to help somebody that's going through something like this, um, and not just be quiet and let's not talk about the
Yeah.
emotional side of it. So that's what started me on the Cycle of Lives project, and that was like my big attempt at trying to solve a problem that would move things forward rather than get me back to even.
You've hit on, my sister has had various things of cancer, and I've known plenty of other people who have had cancer. And in my family, it was heart disease and all sorts of other things. And it's like, why is it that we don't talk about it? Why is it that we're not there emotionally for people? When the person is going through something, what's the first thing that shuts down? It's their
Mhm,
emotion, because they're
mhm,
overwhelmed. They don't know how to deal with it.
mhm,
So we pussyfoot around and we don't know how to talk to them. And if we could just talk to them straight, okay, you've got this. You're going to get through this. You're not alone. Let's just work it out one step at a time. And
mhm.
sometimes that you coming forward with that kind of strength helps them take that breath they need to face it in their own strength. It's said that cancer is an 80% emotional disease. It's emotions that are bottled up inside of you that causes dis-ease that comes out in a form of disease in some other way. And when you release whatever it is that has got you there, the turmoil, the trauma, the things that people have bottled up and never talked about, it has to come out. It has to be released. And then you are on the road to recovery, along with all the other things that you do with cancer. But it happens so much when you see people who are going through something and people don't call anybody anymore, because they don't know what to say.
That's
And
exactly it. They
and
just
it's
don't know what
just
to
like, this is your friend,
say.
this is your relative,
Mhm,
this is a loved one, this is someone you care about. Just go to them. Okay, I'm sorry you have cancer, or I'm sorry
mhm.
this has happened to you, but what can I do to help you through it? Because
Right.
that's, they need the external strength at that time for them to turn on that emotional tap, because they shut down. It's too overwhelming. And in order to open up that emotion again in trust, turn up the volume on that emotion, be able to express themselves, they need an outside source to help them do that, that they got a companion that can help them to do that. And I feel very often we see the cancer people going through it alone because nobody knows how to address it. And it's the shush
Yeah.
shush as you go along the way.
Yeah, you're so absolutely right. And listen, not everybody wants to talk about every aspect of their emotional journey.
Right.
It might be at a different place, but
Hmm.
what I think is what I could identify with, and what most people that I spoke to along the way, almost everybody that I spoke to along the way, what I could identify with and what they could agree with is that our initial reaction, our initial uh, um, uh, uh, response was to kind of apologetically back out of the situation, right? I run into you at the coffee store, and I just came from a meeting where I was going to where I got notified I'm getting a promotion. I'm on cloud nine,
Right.
and I run into you and I go, oh my gosh, Sarah, I haven't seen you in forever. I go, oh, how are you doing? And you go, oh, I'm all right. I go, what? And you go, oh, I just had a rough day. Just a friend of mine called me, and their son just got diagnosed with cancer. I don't know what to say to him. And I go, oh geez, I'm really sorry. And I go, I want to tell her about my promotion, but I can't. And
Right.
I don't want to sound stupid and go, why do you care so much about your friend's son? Or maybe that brings up a memory about, didn't Sarah have something bad happen to one
Mm.
of her kids?
Yeah.
And I go,
Yeah.
okay, well, geez, good luck with that. And I run out of the
Right.
coffee shop,
Yeah.
right? Or I, like you said, push your foot around the conversation because I'm a little too nervous to talk to you about
Right.
it. Okay. That's reasonable. I can understand that.
Yeah.
Okay. Or when you have a friend who's an oncologist and they've been an oncologist for 30 years, and you're just going to assume that they know how to deal with the emotional side of it.
Right.
Oh, you're
Yes.
so strong. You're so this, you're so that. Maybe nobody ever asked them how they're doing. I had an oncologist that's part of this book. One of the stories 15 stories in the book. She was an oncologist for 40 years. When I talked to her, Sarah, she had not talked to one single person, not her husband, not her friends, not her coworkers, not peers, not whatever, about the emotional issues that she had gone through as an oncologist for 40 years.
Yeah.
And those were in relation. Some of them were related to the fact that when she was 12, her dad never came home, and she never heard from him ever again. Okay,
Yes. It's always a
something that
past trauma. It
okay.
always is.
But nobody. When I said to her, I said, I got to ask you questions nobody else has asked you. She goes, that's okay. I've never really talked about this stuff.
Mm.
And I went, what?
Hmm.
How could nobody ever have talked to you about this?
Right. Yeah.
So that's what drove me to do the book, because and to dive into these stories, because if I could bring you a story that was entertaining, that was evoked some emotional response in you, some identification, some like, oh man, I totally get that, um, then maybe you might be better equipped to allow somebody to talk to you, or better equipped to talk to somebody else who might be looking for you to connect with them.
And sometimes it's just the moral support. I've always been the advocate for other people. I've always been the person that's being um, the answers and the light they need. And so when I was going through my own turmoil, when I said to them, marriage in trouble or this is in trouble, they washed over it
Mhm.
because I was their strength. They didn't want to see me as anything other than their strength, right? And what do you say to somebody who's strong that's going through something? Well, nothing I say can match what she says. So
Mhm.
therefore, not going to say anything at all. And
Right.
this is something, we all have a beautiful vulnerability about us. And
Mhm.
being vulnerable is actually a beautiful thing to be. It's also an invitation for you to meet me at that vulnerability and care for me. You may
Mhm.
not be able to do anything else other than I'm there for you or I care.
Mhm.
But we can't go into the avoidance. Somehow, in some way, reach out in some way. It means
Yeah,
a lot to someone.
it
And
does.
just to know that somebody cares.
Right. I'm gonna steal words from a good friend of mine who says we are all. He's a hypnotist and psychologist and NLP practitioner. He's just a really heart centered, authentic guy, and he helps people. And he says, "Listen, here's the point I'm coming from. We're all just little kids
Mm.
in big kid bodies using big kid words.
Yes.
And what do little kids want? They just want to be safe. That's it.
Yes.
right? They just want to be safe. That's what we all want. So we all want to know that if we are feeling vulnerable,
Mm,
if we want to push everybody away because that's what we need, that we can be safe to do that. If we want somebody to care about us and we open the door a tiny bit, we need to know that it's safe to open that door.
yeah,
And for me, I'm not saying that I know. I'm just saying that I'm observant, and after talking to so many people about this over so long a period of time, that that if I could be better equipped to understand what people might have gone through,
yeah,
then when somebody says to me, I'm fine, I don't really need anything, that might be one of 10 things. It might be, I'm fine, I don't need anything, but thanks for asking.
yeah,
That might be, I'm fine, I don't need anything because there's no way in the world you could give me what I need.
right.
It might be, I'm fine, I don't need anything because if I tell you that I am not fine and I tell you that I need something, then I'm going to crumble
Hmm.
or whatever. I mean, it could be a
Or
hundred
you're
different
going
things,
to run.
or you're going to
Yeah,
run,
yeah,
right?
right. Hmm.
Right. So, um, th- and I think, I personally believe that if we're fortunate enough to get to the point where we can look back on our lives, the only thing that we really uh, receive joy in or have regret over is the human connections that
Yeah,
we've made. And I feel like we most of us want to have better and
yes,
deeper, more meaningful human connections. So if we do that, shouldn't we figure out a way to be better tuned into what people might want, or allow people to better tune into what we might need? And
yeah.
so that's the purpose. That was the whole purpose of
Mm.
Cycle of Life.
No, I do love the fact that you've addressed that because um, we do shut down when we're faced with a trauma. It's
Mhm.
part of our defense, right? But if we stay shut down and there's nobody around us to help us, we get lost in that and we can't find the door to come back out. So it's having somebody hold that door open for you. Okay, when you're ready, you can come out. I'm there for you. It's safe for you to come out. Even if
Right.
you just put a toe or put a hand and wave, that door is open for you. Because what we don't want is for people to completely shut that door and forget where it is and how to open it up again. Because whatever they're going through is only going to be multiplied then because you've gone into your own turmoil. And we know that, yes, but what if? Yes, but what if?
Mhm.
And when we're in that what if, we go into the negative scenarios, not the positive ones. So, I always say when somebody is healing themselves, they need to remove themselves from any form of negativity and be around positivity. And that
Mhm.
might simply be at the park watching puppy dogs chasing balls and sticks and children
Right.
playing and the
Right.
birds singing and the ocean hitting the shore. It could simply be nature bringing back the joy, opening up that door a little bit, but you need to put yourself in a space that is healing and around people that truly do care, because that's the way you're going to help heal yourself, which is really, really important. Um, and removing yourself from the negative people is very important, but people don't want to hurt other people's feelings. So they don't say anything, they just shut down, they don't
Right.
remove themselves from them, and that negativity keeps bombarding their door.
And listen, when you don't, and when you say, when you keep that distance, you put an arm out, figuratively or literally, to somebody who is perhaps in need of help or attention or sharing or whatever. Once you do that, it's really, really hard to undo that.
Yes.
It's so much easier to not to. It's so much easier to continue to not pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And it's not the most common theme when talking to patients and survivors and caregivers and loved ones and those types. It's not the most common theme, but a very common theme was that being abandoned, being
Yeah.
isolated.
Yeah.
Where did my best friend of 25 years go? Where did my
Mm.
college roommate go? I mean, there's one story in the book with a woman who, I'm not going to tell you how the story ends. It ends in a very positive way, but on the way to get a bone marrow transplant, to check herself into the hospital for all of the pre work that needed to be started to be done, her fiance calls her on the phone and says, "Yeah, you're on your own. I can't do it." On the way to on the way
Louse.
in a cab on the way to the hospital. Then. the cancer returns. She gets another bone marrow transplant, and her boyfriend at the time, who's supposed to now be the one to take care of her on a rotating shift of people for a week, calls her and says, "Yeah, I'm not as strong as you. I'm out. I can't show up." Twice she's abandoned.
Mm. Mm.
And also, by the way, when she first started getting sick, her college roommate, best friend, literally never called her again. She still hasn't heard from her 20 years later. And you wonder, I get how I could not know how to deal with your
Right.
problem. It might be too painful for me. I might just go, I don't know what to say to Sarah. Last thing she needs me to do is be an idiot and say the
Right.
wrong thing and make her feel bad. So I'm just not going to do anything. And meanwhile, you're sitting there going, where the heck is David?
Right.
Man, we would talk once a week. We talk every day. And now he won't even call me.
Right.
He knows what I'm going through.
Right.
So
Mm.
and once we don't make that call, it's so much easier to continue to not. And so
Exactly.
again, abandonment's not the biggest issue, but it's a very common issue. Um, and I think it's because what we've been talking about is people just don't know what to say.
Yeah. And people, when you're in a crisis, you don't want to burden people with what you're going through because everybody's got stuff they're going through.
Hmm.
And it's like, I don't want to burden them with that. They've got enough on their plate right now. And it's like, how do you know if they will not make time for you if you don't ask or if you don't tell them? They could drop everything, or they could say, I'm over there on a such a date. But don't assume. Assumption is a great deal in this, isn't it? And
Yeah.
let's take the assumption out of it and ask.
Right. And ask. And I've learned, in writing, we try to do active writing rather than passive writing, right?
Mm,
Whether you're writing academically or writing fiction or nonfiction or whatever, we try to say, instead of saying, the coffee pot boiled, you say, the whistling from the coffee pot interrupted my train of thought. Okay, well, that one is telling, one is not, right? One is passive, one is active. And this whole idea of asking questions in a passive way. Oh, are you okay? Is there anything you need? Nah, that's not really a question. That is
yeah.
geez, how do I exit from the conversation? Instead of, I would say, I'm going to ask you if you need anything. And
Mhm.
when you answer me, before you do, when you answer me, let me know if it's really what you're thinking, or if you're answering me because you don't want you because you're not sure if I'm coming from a place of I'll give you what you need, or I'll try to give
Right.
you,
Yeah.
right? Oh, wow, that's a tough one. Are you saying you're okay because you don't want to burden
Yeah.
me, or are you
Yeah.
saying you're okay because you
You don't want to
you
impose.
you don't want to pose,
Yeah.
or are you saying you're okay because you're really okay? Like, I really want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very different way to ask a
Mhm.
question.
And very often helping someone else through something, we don't realize what it's doing for us.
Hmm.
It's when you gift somebody something and you see the joy in receiving that gift, that is a gift back to you. And if you're helping someone through something, very often it becomes a reflection on, like, I was busy helping her through that. But my God, it helped me through some things, because
Hmm.
you can't help but kind of look in yourself, or it helps you kind of deal with something else you're going through that you've perhaps avoided. So being there for one another is really what community is about. It's what the external family is about. And we
Hmm.
need to take the fear and the judgment off the table. And if you can't cope with it, if it's like, I'm sorry, this is too much, I can't cope with it, I will try and be there in this way or that way, but I can't be there on that side of it.
Hmm.
It's okay to say that and be honest than to disappear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, just to a point that you made before, it's like, um, to just disappear is probably like the worst
Yeah.
thing that you could do to somebody, but it's easy to understand why you would want to
Yeah.
disappear, right? And, I used to feel like such an idiot when June would call me. My sister's dying, and she'd call me. We were going to start a conversation about something. And what's your immediate reaction when somebody calls you? Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Right. And then I would beat myself up mentally for the next 3 seconds until she answered me, because why in the world would you ask somebody who's dying of cancer how they're doing, or
Yeah.
why
Oh,
are
I'm
you so
dying well. Don't worry.
insensitive, or
Yes.
right? Meanwhile, she didn't even give it a second thought. She was like, "I'm fine, but listen, what I called you about was da da
Yeah.
da da." Da." And so, um, we have to not be afraid to make a mistake, and we have to
Right.
not be afraid
Right.
to put our foot in our mouths, and we
Yeah.
have to not be afraid to say the wrong thing, because um,
There isn't a manual for the right thing,
yeah, that's the
right?
truth.
It's just care.
Hmm.
Come from the heart, really care. Um, I was in a restaurant the other day having lunch with somebody, and there was a mother with a teenage daughter who definitely had having Tourette's and other emotional problems. Ended up the daughter walking out, and the mother just getting it, falling into tears. And I
Mm,
thought, I COVID or not, I don't care. This woman needs a hug.
yeah,
And I just went over there and just hugged her. And she
right.
said, I've failed of a mother. I said, no, you haven't. Everybody has a choice at some point. Her husband had walked out on her as well. This poor
Uh,
woman was really at that point. And I said, your daughter, she said, her age and everything. I said, you can only be there for her if she'll let you be there for her. And this now time, it's for you. It's now time for you. There's no blame here. There's no shame here. This is the time for you and your own healing. You can't help anyone else until you've healed yourself. And that's all she needed at that moment. That's all
that's
she needed.
really amazing. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I gave her my card. I haven't heard from her. One day, maybe, maybe not. I told her to listen to a few of the shows because I interview so many people that are exactly where she's at right now. And I always say the best people in life, the best teachers in life are those that have gone through it.
Hmm.
They've discovered their strength, their courage, their abilities, their passion, their calling, their meaningful purpose,
Hmm.
and everything that they've gone through, which has made them stronger and helped them understand, they turn around and help others going through that
Hmm.
because they know it, they understand it, they care, they can really speak empathetically of it. And they're
Hmm.
the best forms of teachers for everybody. So when we are facing something, it's really like like in the mirror, really, what are
Hmm.
you doing? And then, rollerblading, 85 at the top of the mountain, I can slide all the way down, or I can
Yep.
find that extra strength in me, I can find that extra ability in me. We sell ourselves short on our abilities and on our strength and our tenacity. We've actually become rather cushioned in the last 20, 30 years with our technology. When you look at what our parents had to go through, what their parents had to go through,
Oh
there
yeah.
was never time to wallow in anything
Hmm.
because every minute of the day was taken up with just survival. And
Yeah.
so we do sell ourselves short. And if we're willing to go, there's more in me. I can do this. I can get up off my knees.
Hmm.
I can stand there, even if I'm wobbly, I can find that step forward because I want to.
Yeah, and it's tough because you're dealing with so much junk. Like once
Mm.
I don't know.
Proverbial
I
junk. How much
yeah,
junk do we carry
junk.
around?
Yeah, we do, and gosh, everybody has this like opinion of what they can and can't do, and why they should and why they shouldn't, and they feel guilty giving themselves attention, or they feel guilty not giving others more attention. There's a million things that we're just dragging around at all times,
Yeah.
and kind of none of it really matters. And if you can just figure out a way to let it just go and just figure your stuff out,
Yes.
if just like which I guess in my case, came with forgiveness, self-forgiveness. I make a lot
Mm.
of mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of things right, but I've made a lot of mistakes. And
That's
I,
called learning.
yeah, but when you're, self-sufficient, or you're the boss, or you're the strength, and all of a sudden you start walking around like I'm doing everything wrong,
Mm.
right? That's turmoil. When you're
Yeah.
the strong person like you who needs now to have people help you, that creates a whole lot of gray. Like
Mhm.
how do you navigate that? How do other people around you navigate that? It's just we just have to figure out a way to be present, and to go forward. And for me, that was to, purposefully say, who can you be? It's also to forgive myself for
Yeah.
making mistakes, which is really, really hard to do. because we're really a lot of us, especially those that lived caring about what other people thought, we're really good at hitting ourselves over the head with a
Yes,
hammer,
I know.
right? And so um, just letting go and being able to be present in the moment and see what we can get out of life. If we're if we do that on purpose, that is it's just a gift that keeps giving.
You said this happened to you in your 30s. My son is
Mhm.
36 and he's just been through a 6-year breakup. He runs a restaurant, and when COVID came out and the whole shutdown thing, he was in a plaster cast with a snapped Achilles. And
Yeah.
it was like, what do I do now? I have 33 staff, and how do I keep this going? And he pivoted because he's a very good
Mhm.
businessman and he's done exceptionally well through this. But he's also been on 24/7, carrying the whole weight. And then, when the relationship broke up, and then immediately she went and got engaged to someone else. It was, double
Ah,
whammy. And he just felt like, I'm at my limit. I'm at my limit. And he's carried the strength of everybody. And the staff that have been with him for long enough, because it's a community, it's a family, they love being a part of it, made him cards and said, don't worry, you go and take some time for yourself. We're here for you. And he realized that he could be vulnerable, that he didn't have to be the strength all the time. And
mhm.
that in him saying, I'm at my limit, and I just need to make some time for me. I need to go through a process for me. It doesn't mean he's still not there. It's just that he's actually putting some time into working out and, having some coaching and all
Right.
of that. And they're saying, do it. You've been there for us. You
Hmm.
kept the doors open for us. We're here for you. And he didn't realize that letting that guard down and not being the strength all the time, that allowing himself to be vulnerable was actually permission to them, for them to be there for him for a change.
Yeah,
Right.
I totally understand that. I totally understand that because I love to entertain, I love to cook, and I like being the guy in control of that whole scene, right?
Hmm.
And at one point, my wife said to me, she goes, "Listen, I know there's 20 people here and you've got it, but people ask you for help not because they think you need it,
Yes.
but they ask you for help because they actually want to help. So
Right.
why don't you do what they need?"
Yeah.
Right? Why don't you give them the gift of helping you because it will
Yes.
make them feel better? Like
Yes.
like they want to help. They're not wanting to help because they think that you're not capable. They're wanting to help because that's what they want. Give them what they want. I went, oh, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, it's gifting to them. It's respectful
Yeah,
to them. Otherwise they're on the sideline watching you kind of spin, getting into that tornado.
yeah,
And it's like, well, if only he'd let me help.
right,
And it's not, oh, he's weak and he can't cope with it.
yeah,
It's like, but we're here, put us to work.
right,
Right.
right. And so I also had to say, well, am I doing it because I want to be perceived as the guy that's in control and
Right.
all that?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
You're right. You know what? I need to let go of the ego.
Yes.
And I need to accept the help. And guess what? A lot of times they do parts of what I do better.
Yeah.
So everybody wins in the end,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it's tough lessons to learn. The good thing is that I know a lot of people that are closed minded,
Mm.
and that's okay. I mean, sometimes that's on purpose, and sometimes I understand why they're that way. But to the extent that you can be, I think being open minded
Hmm.
and being optimistic that you can always continue to learn is the thing that drives me, and I think it's a gift that I opened up way too late in life, But
No, it's never too
I
late.
mean, I
It's
know, but
never too
I
late.
I have it now,
Yes.
right? And I don't have a
But you went on
regret.
that discovery in your 30s. And like as I said, so many
Yeah,
people I've interviewed, it's been 60s and 70s because they didn't have permission before.
right.
Finally it's like, why am I seeking permission from anyone else? The only permission I need is me.
Yep.
Right.
Which is
And
it's so
it's a
hard.
hard one. Yeah. Permission to put yourself forward. But it's the old oxygen to yourself, right? If you're out of air, how can you help anyone else? If we're depleted, how can we help anyone else? We have to make ourselves abundant because then our cup runneth over,
Mhm.
right? And we've got even more to give. I've interviewed a lot of people in their 80s. And what I love about them is there's a lot of chutzpah in their approach to life. They've been through a lot. If they've lived to their 80s, they've been through a lot. Um, it's their attitude. And a lot of it is in gratitude. They've all had knocks, they've all been swiped sideways, they've all had losses, but they chose to go, well, thank you for what I did have. I'm going to pick myself up, dust myself off, and I know I can still have something great in my future
Mm-hmm.
instead of
Mm-hmm.
dying with whatever they lost. And it's that wonderful attitude and positive attitude of gratitude and perspective. I'm still living. Well, if I'm still living, I need to live and
Mm-hmm.
not sit back and watch life pass me by.
Right.
And there's one of them, 89, she took a new lover at 87, and she's got her own TV show, and she's
Oh
full of
my goodness.
life, you know?
Right. Right.
Another
Right.
one, 82, she's written a rhyme every single day of COVID, right?
Oh my goodness.
Every single day of COVID.
Right.
And she's an artist, she's a musician, she'll post videos of herself dancing. And, there she is, 82, and she was in a prisoner of war camp when she was a child. She
Oh my gosh.
was made a prisoner by her husband in South Africa. She's been through a lot, but she chose. I'm happier with a positive attitude than I am with a negative one,
It's
right?
amazing. Yeah. So I guess I am lucky that I was able to discover
Yes,
some of this stuff earlier
yes.
than later.
It's never too late,
Hmm.
but if you can do it earlier, it's better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's help people do it earlier.
Yes, exactly. That's what these shows are all about.
Absolutely.
Inspiration begets invitation. When
Yep.
you're inspired by something, it's an invitation for you to look at your own life and go, well, look where you came from.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the massive amount of shows on business, and it's really always really intriguing when, particularly Wall Street, or I was, CEO of this company. I was earning the six figures,
Yep.
and I realized I was really successful but utterly miserable.
Yeah.
And I was, I was living the outside life, and nothing of the inside was connected. And
Hmm.
they gave it all up to make that journey from the inside out. And now they're not earning the six figures, but they feel more enriched and more abundant than ever in their lives because
Yeah.
they're doing something that comes from the heart and the soul.
Mhm. It's hard. It's so hard though because we got people we need to take care of. We have, we've got to live. We got to put food on the table, and we have to do this, and we have to do that. But whatever form it takes. Again, going back to this theme of forming more meaningful connections with people, or not having done that, right? The
Mm,
regret over not having done that. Whatever it takes to do that, I think that is um, that it's a wonderful thing to strive for.
yes,
And
yes.
one of the themes. So in the book, there were two themes that were consistent. Like some things had repetition, but there were two themes that were consistent, and they're both great themes to learn from. And one theme was no matter how unbelievably interesting, full of turmoil, or full of benefit, or however you would judge somebody's life, they were spectacular. These stories are unbelievably interesting and spectacular, both from the positive and the negative viewpoint. They Every single one of the people said, my story's not that interesting. Nobody wants to hear it. Okay, because we're all just living our life.
Yeah,
So I think that the lesson learned in that is that if you just go a little bit deeper, you can find out just amazing things that people have gone through, and there's so
right.
much to learn from that.
Oh, God,
The
yes.
other theme that was very consistent was the theme we talked about early on and have been talking about most of the time, and that is that they weren't equipped to let people connect with them, or
Mm,
that people around them weren't equipped
right.
to connect with them. Um, and I thought to myself, if that's really the theme that diversity of age, experience, background, you name it, and that those were the two things that were absolutely common in every single person. It just reinforced, and everybody I met along the bike ride was unbelievably interesting when you got down into it, and they all had that same kind of like, oh, I can't wait till the book comes out so I can learn how to
Yeah,
say this to that
yeah.
person or whatever. Um, it is that was my pass. That was my a ticket to be able to continue to try to focus on those things rather than on the other things.
Yeah.
I want to focus on
What is
building
possible?
deeper connections.
Yeah. I mean, look, everything in life is connection,
Yeah.
everything is communication.
Hmm.
We need to be connected to each other because we
Hmm.
are.
Hmm.
Right, we need to communicate with each other whichever way it is,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
everybody has a different way of communicating, but communicate. We're not meant to shut ourselves off and go through things alone. We were designed to be the village, and everyone in the village look out for each other. And when we reach out to people in trust and trust them with our burden is shared. And that means you get fortified and you can then be stronger to help somebody else with their burden when the time
Mhm.
comes. And that's just the way of life. It's the way it is. I'm so happy that you've put these stories into a book
Mhm.
because there's, again, I've done many stories on cancer, and never mind fighting the disease. It's always fighting, well, is this a life sentence or death sentence? Or is this, what about my family? What about this? And then,
Mhm.
as you said, it's all the external worry
Mhm.
instead of like, okay, what can I do to face this and beat this and overcome it? And that means letting people in, and that means communicating what you need, and that means letting go of stuff that you've held on to for too long, which is really important.
Mhm.
Having said that, how do people actually get hold of the book,
Ah,
and what else do you offer them, and how do they get hold of you?
oh, that's really nice, you, Sarah. So, one thing that's important to know is that the smaller goal was to raise money for cancer organizations and other nonprofits that are dear to the people that were in the book. So, each one of the 15 participants picked a nonprofit. Most of them were cancer related and very well known nonprofits that they had a affinity towards. And
Lovely.
so 100% of the proceeds from the book are being donated to amongst those charities. So every book that's sold, 100% of the net proceeds goes out to charity. So that's one thing that was important. The bigger goal was to help start conversations. So
Yes.
um, so if people want to get the book wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, most books are sold on Amazon. They can go to my website, which is cycleoflives.org. I sell signed copies, and still the 100% of the proceeds go to charity. Um, and yeah, that's how they can get a hold of it. Uh, the audiobook, the Audible, is almost out, and I'm super excited by that because out of the 15 stories, I have 15 different actors that are each reading one of the stories.
Wonderful.
I read the narrative in between each story because that's my story,
Mhm.
but I'm not in the stories. I wrote the stories from the person's perspective. So each one of the 15 stories has a different actor, which I'm really excited to bring to people because it'll just, I think, make it that much more exciting. Um, and yeah, so they can get the real book, an ebook, or very, very soon the Audible.
Wonderful. Fantastic. And your site again is circleoflives.org.
.org. Yeah, we're
And
a
you've also got the
501c.
Facebook the same.
Same thing, Facebook, Instagram, the whole thing. I'm not very prescriptive minded or preachy or telling people how to think or what to do. I'm more hopeful that I can connect people through stories
Hmm.
that will evoke an emotion in them that goes, oh yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
That gives me something, that gives me a piece of information I need.
And we all know somebody somewhere who's going
Mhm.
through cancer, especially or trauma. By reading this book, it's helping you find the ways to communicate, to understand why they're shutting down or pushing people away, or the things to say that are going to help them. Because as we said, half the time we just don't know how to react. We don't know what to say. And by reading these stories, it gives you not only the permission, but it gives you the ability of what to say, when to say it, how to offer your services. And a lot of the time, we just don't know what people are going through. We can't relate. And so we just don't know what to do. We don't do anything. And that is for my thing, is the worst thing you could do is not do anything. Even if you make a mistake, it's better than doing nothing. Some way or other, we need to be there for people on whatever level. Um,
Absolutely.
and so that is part of that village mentality where we all look out for one another. And if we do that, we live in a much better world. Um,
Yeah. And we're going to add to that one more thing, and that
mhm,
is that the stories are really interesting. I mean,
mhm.
they're really, they're not all, negative and
Right.
depressing. They're all inspirational, and they have some kind of hope and some kind of positive mindset or an understanding to solve. Like, how did somebody get through that? Oh, okay, I got that, and that's inspiring.
Yes.
So I think the stories are also very interesting. So you get that extra.
Yeah. Again, we are much stronger than we think we are.
Yeah.
We have so much more resilience than we think we have. And, when we read those stories, it really does help us look at our own lives and going, well, if they can, surely I can.
Hmm.
It's in me as well. So don't sell yourself short, right? We've got a lot more in
Absolutely.
us. Thank
Yep.
you so much for sharing here today and for writing the book and taking the time to take that journey, because it really is beneficial to so many people.
Well, thank you, and you're welcome, Sarah. It is a good. I love the fact that it has different stories from different perspectives,
Hmm.
and that's something that somebody like you, having done what you've done for so long, understand is there's not one message, there's not one story, there's endless perspectives and endless stories,
Yes,
and sometimes what you need doesn't come around until the moment you need it, and so
exactly. Yes. And
what
the
what you've
teacher
been
too.
doing for yeah, what you've been doing for years and years, I hope you continue to do, because even if it's one person at that right time,
Yeah,
it's making an impact. So thank you.
that's what we're here for, right?
Yep.
just to show people they're not alone. There's others that have gone through it, and like they're extending their hand in wisdom,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And if we're willing to take that hand, they'll know that they'll never travel alone.
Hmm. Hmm.
Thank you so much, David.
Oh, you're
You
welcome.
take
Thank you,
care.
Sarah.
Until next time, folks, please get this book. It will give you an understanding of what people go through. It will uplift you. It will help you communicate. But maybe it's something you've just been diagnosed with and you're going, oh, gosh, how do I get through this? We can all get through it one way or other. It is that journey of ours that we have to rise up and meet and see how strong and resilient we are. So never give up, never give in. We've got it. Until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. You will hear many, many shows here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. We have new shows for you out every week. Just find them on our podcast or What's New. If you feel that you have something to share that makes a difference in the lives of others, or you too feel that you could be a host, please contact me at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com and we will be glad to speak with you. Have a wonderful day.